Have you ever felt that really specific, really sharp sting of just totally crushing your own expectations at work?
Oh, man. Yeah, it is not a fun feeling.
Right, like you
Right.
take on the extra projects, you cover for colleagues who are out, you're answering emails at 8 o'clock on a Saturday.
You basically become the absolute MVP of your team.
Exactly, the undeniable MVP. And
Mhm.
then you just sit there and watch a colleague, maybe someone with less tenure, or just someone who doesn't produce nearly as much as you do,
Yet the promotion,
get the exact promotion you thought was basically guaranteed. And if you're listening to this and nodding your head right now, I mean, you are definitely not alone.
not at all. It's a wildly common experience.
It really is. So today, our mission for this deep dive is to basically dismantle the myth of the workplace meritocracy. We want to understand exactly why this happens.
Yeah, and we've got some great material to pull from for this.
We do. We are pulling from this fascinating research paper by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover. It's called Escape the Indispensability Trap, Navigating the Positioning Paradox.
Right. And the core revelation here is it's going to sound completely backwards to most
I'm
people.
totally backwards. The idea that doing your job too well can actually, ruin your career progression.
Yeah, we really have to fundamentally reframe how we think about career advancement to even make sense of this. Because most of us enter the workforce with this mental model that's based entirely on our education.
Right, like school. You do the work, you get the A.
Exactly. In school, you pass the tests and you automatically graduate to the next grade. It's this very linear, objective progression.
Which makes sense. That's how we're trained for 20 years.
But modern promotions do not function like graduating to the next grade at all. They actually function as these really complex internal market transactions.
Market transactions, wow.
Yeah, so objective performance being the MVP, that's just one tiny piece of a much larger, highly strategic organizational puzzle.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because going from that emotional gut punch of being passed over to suddenly looking at it as an internal market transaction, that is a pretty big leap for anyone to make.
It is a shift in perspective, for sure.
Like, if I am the person doing the best work and I'm producing the most value, why on earth would the organization actively resist moving me up the chain?
Well, it comes down to what the research calls the indispensability trap.
The indispensability trap, I
Right.
think.
So when an employee becomes exceptionally effective in their current role, promoting them actually creates this immediate, incredibly expensive capability gap.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, from the organization's perspective, moving that top performer out of their daily duties is highly disruptive.
Hmm.
So they face this perverse, short-term disincentive to advance their most productive people.
That is so wild.
In labor economics, this is actually driven by something called a specificity premium.
A specificity premium, meaning my skills are just too specific to the exact desk I'm sitting at.
Yes, exactly. Your skills, your relationships, your institutional knowledge, they all become perfectly tailored to your current context.
Right, you're a specialist in your own specific job.
You don't just know how to run a marketing campaign. You know exactly how to bypass that one broken legacy software your company uses.
Oh, we all know that software.
Right. And you know exactly how to pacify the one notoriously grumpy client. That highly specific knowledge makes you incredibly valuable right where you are.
But paradoxically, it limits your upward mobility.
Exactly, because nobody else can step in and do it like you do.
It makes me think of like a house. The high performer is basically a load-bearing wall.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. You might look at the floor plan and think, hey, it would be amazing to move this wall to build out a nicer second floor suite.
You can't just move it.
No. The organization is terrified that if they actually move that wall, the entire ceiling is going to cave in on them. They need you right where you are just to keep the roof up.
They absolutely do.
So for you listening right now, it's really worth asking yourself, have you accidentally made yourself a load-bearing wall in your own department?
And if we look at the structural changes in the modern workplace over the last 20 years, we actually see why there are more of these load-bearing walls than ever before.
Why is that?
The whole architecture of the corporate house has completely changed. Organizations have undergone this intense delayering process.
Delayering, meaning
Yeah.
removing levels of management.
Exactly. Starting in the early 2000s, companies really stripped out the middle management rungs to create flatter, leaner structures. And at the same time, we've seen a massive increase in the span of control.
Span of control meaning the number of people a single manager is actually responsible for.
Correct. So 20 years ago, a manager might have supervised maybe 4 or 5 direct reports. Today, It is not uncommon at all to see a manager overseeing 15 or 20 people.
Wow, that is huge difference.
It is. Mathematically, there are simply fewer management jobs available relative to the massive number of individual contributors.
And I imagine that gets worse with highly specialized roles.
Oh, absolutely. Add to that the phenomenon of skill polarization. Companies desperately need these deep technical specialists like data scientists or cloud architects.
Right.
But those specialists often have nowhere to go within the hierarchy once they actually master their domain.
So the pyramid is getting wider at the bottom and much, much narrower at the top. But looking at the research, it also points out that this structural bottleneck doesn't actually capture everyone equally, right?
No, it doesn't. The demographic data outlined in Dr. Westover's paper reveals that this structural narrowing disproportionately impacts certain groups.
Okay, how so?
Well, women and professionals from underrepresented racial and ethnic backgrounds often face what researchers call the prove-it-again bias.
Prove it again,
Yeah.
meaning their past track record just isn't taken at face value in the same way.
Exactly. The data shows they experience longer average times in a role before a promotion, and they often face higher performance standards just to prove their readiness for that next level.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. The paper neutrally reports that this dynamic, where you just have to continuously demonstrate competence over a longer period, it frequently leads to what is termed tightrope exhaustion.
Tightrope exhaustion, wow.
Yeah, it's the emotional and professional burnout that comes from continuously delivering high performance, walking that tightrope flawlessly, but without receiving the commensurate organizational recognition or upward movement.
But, let me push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Isn't a lot of this career stagnation mostly just tied to the broader economy?
Yeah.
I mean, if the economy is booming and the company is growing, budgets are expanding, don't people just naturally get promoted?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah, it feels like a rising tide should lift all boats, and these indispensability traps only really happen during a recession.
Well, what's fascinating here is that while the broader economic weather absolutely does matter, it doesn't eliminate the actual structural architecture of the house. The paper actually acknowledges this research by labor economist L.B. Kahn. And Kahn shows that during economic expansions, internal promotion rates do increase. Companies are taking on new initiatives, creating new senior positions.
Right, there's just more money flowing around.
Exactly. But Kahn's data, alongside other career plateau research, shows that even in the best economies, that structural narrowing of the pyramid and those systemic biases mean career stagnation is inevitable for roughly 40 to 50% of professionals.
Wait, 40 to 50%, even in a good economy?
Even in a boom, the plateau happens regardless of the business cycle.
So what does this all mean? Like, if I'm hearing this right, the structure is essentially rigged against the high performer.
It really is.
But surely the company pays a massive price when those high performers finally figure out the game, like when they realize their hard work is actually what's trapping them?
Oh, the organization pays a devastating price.
Rob.
But the crazy part is they often do it without realizing why it's happening.
Because they just think people are moving on naturally.
Exactly. But the research by Trevor and colleagues found that turnover sensitivity is significantly higher among top performers when they are denied a promotion compared to just average performers.
Well, sure, because they know their worth.
Right. And when a true MVP leaves, replacing them costs the organization between 100 and 150% of their annual salary.
Wow. That is a massive hit.
But the fallout isn't just financial. There's a deeply psychological component here, too. When top performers see less qualified peers advance, it triggers what the researchers call relative deprivation effects.
Relative deprivation. Okay, I feel like we've all seen this happen in real time.
Oh, definitely.
It is the absolute star engineer or the top sales rep who gets passed over, and then suddenly they just stop answering Slack messages after 5 p.m.
Yep, they stop volunteering for the committee.
Exactly. They go from moving mountains to just doing the bare minimum required to not get fired. They look at those stagnant rewards and consciously reduce their discretionary effort to match it.
And that withdrawal is often accompanied by identity threat.
Identity threat.
Yeah, for high achievers, people who really define themselves by their continuous growth and their ability to conquer new challenges, stalling out actually feels like an attack on their professional identity.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
They aren't just losing a job title. They are losing their sense of self as an upwardly mobile professional.
The identity threat alone explains so much of the quiet quitting and the burnout we see across all these different industries.
It really does.
And if we look at the financial penalty for the individual, it is just compounding. Missing out on a standard, 10 to 20% salary bump doesn't just hurt this year, it hurts every single year for the rest of their career.
It alters their baseline for future negotiations, their retirement matches, everything.
Everything. The ultimate irony here is almost painful to look at. The organization refuses to promote you because they are so terrified of losing your output. And that exact decision is the catalyst that drives you to completely disengage or just quit altogether.
Right. They guarantee the very outcome they were trying to avoid.
It's organizational self-sabotage on a grand scale. But moving to the second half of Westover's research, it actually moves away from just diagnosing the problem and focuses on evidence-based organizational interventions.
Which is the good news.
Right. If the structure is flawed, how do companies actually dismantle the indispensability trap without collapsing the ceiling?
Well, one of the most effective tools is radical transparency. The paper highlights this really interesting case study from Deloitte.
Okay, what did Deloitte do?
They implemented a comprehensive initiative where they actually published their internal promotion criteria matrices.
Wait, publish them for everyone to see?
Everyone.
I can imagine a lot of executives really pushing back against that because it totally removes management discretion. I mean, it forces managers to have really uncomfortable conversations if an employee checks all the boxes on the matrix but still isn't getting promoted.
That is exactly the friction companies face when they try rolling this out.
Yeah.
But Deloitte mandated twice annual promotion readiness conversations, and they shared historical data on promotion rates within the firm.
That is so transparent.
Crucially, they clearly distinguish between threshold requirements, the baseline competencies you need to even be considered, and differentiating factors.
Differentiating factors being the actual skills that win you the job.
Exactly. The specific strategic skills that actually get you the offer. By doing this, Deloitte raised the proportion of employees who felt they had a clear advancement path from 54% up to 78%.
That makes total sense. Just turn the lights on and show everyone the actual rules of the game so they aren't just blindly guessing.
Right.
But even with transparency, you still have that load-bearing wall problem. If I'm a manager and my bonus is strictly tied to my department's output, how do you convince me to let my best person move up to another division?
Well, that requires formalizing the transition at an institutional level.
Yeah.
General Electric is cited in the paper for their really rigorous Session C process. Yes. It neutralizes the indispensability trap by making succession readiness a measurable metric for managers themselves. For every critical role, the organization mandates the identification of at least 2 potential successors.
So a manager actually has to write down names.
They have to write down names, and they have to categorize them on a grid: ready now, ready soon, or ready later.
Oh, wow.
By forcing managers to build backup capacity before a promotion is even on the table, it removes the fear of the ceiling caving in.
Because there's already a plan in place.
Exactly. If a manager cannot name a ready now successor for their top performer, that actually reflects poorly on the manager's ability to develop talent. It completely shifts the incentive.
So GE solves this from the top down by forcing managers to build a bench. But, what if your company doesn't do that? As an individual listening to this right now, how do you escape the trap?
It's tricky, but it's possible.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. The research points to a massive difference between having a mentor and having a sponsor.
Yes, this is a huge distinction.
It highlights a case study from American Express regarding underrepresented groups. So for the listener trying to navigate this, what is the actual practical difference between getting a mentor and securing a sponsor?
The distinction is critical for navigating that internal market we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
A mentor is someone who talks to you.
Okay.
They provide advice, guidance, emotional support, and they help you navigate tricky workplace dynamics.
Oh.
But a sponsor is someone who talks about you.
Yeah.
They use their own organizational capital, their influence, and their reputation to advocate for you behind closed doors during talent reviews.
Because that is where the real decisions are actually made, in a room you aren't invited to.
Precisely. In the American Express initiative, executives acting as sponsors were actually required to identify stretch assignments and explicitly champion their protégés in those closed-door executive meetings.
They had to stick their own necks out.
They had to put their own credibility on the line to say, this person is ready for the next level. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the result of this program was that participants had promotion rates 25% higher than comparable peers.
25%. That's huge.
Excellence in your daily tasks doesn't matter if the people holding the budget and making the promotion decisions don't actually know who you are.
Right. A mentor helps you do the work better, but a sponsor makes sure you actually get the credit for it.
Exactly.
But let's look at the reality of that narrowed pyramid we discussed. Let's say you get the sponsor, you build the visibility, you do absolutely everything right, but then you realize you don't even want to be a manager.
Which happens a lot.
Or there simply aren't any manager roles left because of all that delayering. What happens then? Are you just stuck?
This brings us to redefining the career ladder entirely. Forward-thinking organizations are realizing that the traditional upward path into management just isn't the only way to recognize value.
So what are the alternatives?
The paper explores the concept of dual career ladders. Intel is a prime example of this working in practice. They have a system where deep technical specialists can advance to roles like fellow or senior fellow.
And these technical roles aren't just like glorified senior engineers.
No, not at all. These individuals hold the exact same compensation, status, and prestige as senior corporate executives. But their advancement is based entirely on technical contribution, patents, and industry impact, rather than how many people they manage.
Which is amazing, because for decades, the only way to get a raise was to stop doing the thing you were really good at and start managing other people doing it.
Which usually just resulted in the company losing a great engineer and gaining a terrible manager.
Exactly. But let's look at the reality of these dual ladders. Do they actually work in the boardroom? Like, is a senior fellow treated with the exact same respect as a vice president when it comes to strategy?
That is the ultimate test of the system. The research emphasizes a crucial caveat for dual ladders to work. They must provide what is called influence equity, not just equal pay.
Influence equity.
Yes. A senior fellow needs a literal seat at the table during strategic decisions. They need to have a say in budget allocation and product direction.
They need real power.
If they don't have that structural power, the technical track quickly becomes viewed by the rest of the company as just a secondary, lesser path for people who just couldn't cut it in management.
It becomes a fake promotion.
Exactly. Now, beyond dual ladders, we are also seeing a shift towards skills-based mobility rather than hierarchical mobility.
How does that work?
IBM transformed its approach into an internal lateral marketplace. Employees build these detailed skills profiles, and they apply for projects across entirely different business units based on their competencies rather than their strict job titles.
Yeah, that's smart.
This approach bypasses the traditional gatekeepers entirely, and it actually increased internal mobility by 30%.
I really love that visualization. Because the old model of a career was a literal ladder. You either move up to the next rung, or you were stuck blocking the person behind you, just staring at the shoes of the person above you.
Right, it's very limiting.
But this new model with lateral mobility, dual tracks, and skills marketplaces, it is much more like a rock climbing wall. Moving sideways to grab a better handhold is just as strategic as moving up.
I love that analogy.
Sometimes you have to move laterally to build a new competency to find the route that actually gets you to the top.
And, even without formal structural changes like IBM or Intel, individuals can redefine their advancement through what W. L. Gore and Associates calls natural leadership.
Natural leadership.
At Gore, which is famous in organizational psychology for its lack of formal hierarchy, leadership isn't conferred by a title on an org chart. It is earned through expertise, relationship building, and the ability to drive outcomes across boundaries.
So you just build it yourself.
It is about expanding your sphere of influence from exactly where you are sitting right now, just pulling people towards your ideas.
So bringing this all together for you, the listener, the core realization of this deep dive is that being excellent at your job is necessary, but it is entirely insufficient for career progression.
It's just the baseline.
Right. If you put your head down, do the work of 3 people, and just focus on the output, you are inadvertently building the indispensability trap around yourself. You have to actively manage your positioning.
You really do.
You need to understand the internal market, build visibility with a sponsor, and constantly scan your environment to ensure you aren't becoming the load-bearing wall of your department.
And this raises an important question, and it's something I really want to leave the listener to genuinely consider as they look at their own career trajectory after this.
What's that?
We have established that becoming absolutely indispensable to your team is actually a career trap.
Yeah.
So, is the ultimate strategy for upward mobility to intentionally design your own obsolescence?
Oh.
Should you spend your very first day in a new role actively figuring out how to automate, delegate, and document your job so thoroughly that the company never has to fear promoting you out of it.
It changes everything about how you approach your workday, doesn't it? Because the moment you make sure the roof won't cave in without you is the exact moment they finally let you build the next floor. Keep that in mind the next time you find yourself doing everyone's work and wondering why the MVP trophy feels so incredibly heavy.